Blue lights carved through my vines like cheap theater spotlights that morning, gravel spitting under patrol tires as two cruisers skidded to a stop right at my property line. There she stood, Karen Whitaker, self-appointed queen of Vista Ridge HOA. Clipboard raised like a sword, designer sunglasses glinting, voice slicing the air. "Arrest him! He's in flagrant violation of every aesthetic and safety standard we voted on." She jabbed a finger straight at me while I stood knee-deep in my own grapes, pruning shears dripping sap, minding my own damn legacy. What Karen didn't know, what her entire little empire of laminated bylaws never prepared her for, was that the dirt under her pointed-toe heels had my family name stamped on a courthouse deed 82 years before her subdivision even broke ground. This wasn't just land. This was the Hale family vineyard, planted by my grandfather after he limped home from the Pacific with nothing but scars and a dream. Every row, every root, every bottle we pressed carried stories older than her community standards. But Karen? She only saw an eyesore that wouldn't conform. Picture this. A woman who moved here from some sterile planned community 3 years ago, now strutting our foothills like she invented civilization. First came the courtesy letter, printed on glossy HOA stationery, of course. Non-compliant fencing. Weathered cedar does not meet Vista Ridge uniformity guidelines. Replace within 30 days or face escalating fines. I read it aloud to my crew while we were stacking barrels outside the old cellar, the oak still warm from the sun. My foreman, Jose, just laughed. "She wants us to paint it white, like a damn picket fence in the middle of wine country." I didn't yell. I didn't call her. I simply mailed back a photocopy of the 1941 deed, highlighted in yellow with a sticky note. "Guidelines don't reach this far. Enjoy your afternoon." Karen didn't enjoy it. She escalated faster than a bad Cabernet turning to vinegar. Next came the drone. That infernal buzzing thing started hovering over the East Block every Saturday at 8 a.m. sharp, lens dipping low enough to rattle the tin roof on the barn. I caught it on my trail cam, the same cam I'd quietly installed after her first visit. Karen later claimed in the neighborhood newsletter it was for safety inspections. Safety. Right. Because nothing says neighborly concern like spying on workers pruning vines while sipping her oat milk latte from a lawn chair she parked just outside my easement. Then the notices multiplied like fruit flies. Barrels constitute visual clutter. Pruning stakes are tripping hazards. Excessive foliage disrupts curb appeal. Each one taped to my barn door with the same obsessive precision, corners perfectly aligned, like she'd practiced in the mirror. Neighbors started whispering at the mailboxes. "Just comply, Marcus. It's easier." But compliance would have meant ripping out the hand-built trellises my grandfather hammered together with bleeding palms. Compliance would have meant erasing the only thing that still smelled like home after he passed. Karen saved her masterpiece for Mrs. Ramirez, 76 years old, widowed, living in the little cottage at the ridge edge that my family had leased to her for decades at cost. The notice arrived in a crisp envelope. Excessive water usage on ornamental roses, $2,850 fine. Pay or face lien. Mrs. Ramirez showed up at my door shaking, envelope clutched like a death warrant. "They say I have to choose between my flowers and my blood pressure pills, Mijo." Her voice cracked. "I water them by hand. With a bucket. Like I always have." That was the moment the gloves came off. Because while Karen preached community harmony, at every HOA Zoom, she was quietly siphoning dues into her own pocket. I'd been digging, not dramatically, just methodically, the way my grandfather taught me to tend roots. Public records, bank filings, even her brother's LLC that somehow won the $87,000 community beautification contract for landscaping that never happened. Photos of her new Tesla parked in her garage, plates still dealer fresh. Receipts for a board retreat in Napa that was really just her and two cronies at a spa. Every dollar traced back to the same pot she used to fine an old woman for growing roses. I didn't storm the next board meeting. I let her run it like the tyrant she was. Podium, pointer, PowerPoint slides of before and after visions where my vineyard magically became a sea of identical beige houses. She smiled that tight little smile. Some elements simply don't fit our vision of polished living. I stood up slowly, folder in hand. "Funny you mention vision, Karen. Because the State Attorney General's office seems to have a pretty clear one of fraud, misappropriation of funds, and elder financial abuse." The room went dead silent except for the click of my projector. Slide 1, her brother's LLC. Slide 2, the missing $214,000. Slide 3. Screenshots of her personal Venmo requests labeled HOA emergency. I even had the drone footage she loved so much, now zoomed in on her own backyard pool she'd built without permits, using beautification money. Karen's face did something beautiful. It crumpled. "This is harassment," she shrieked, voice cracking like cheap wine glass. "I have connections. My cousin's on the planning commission." She actually lunged for the podium mic again, but the deputies I'd quietly tipped off were already moving. The same deputies she'd called on me weeks earlier. One of them, a guy named Torres who grew up buying our wine at the farmer's market, read her rights with the flattest voice I'd ever heard. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for felony embezzlement and fraudulent assessments." The cuffs clicked. That metallic snap echoed louder than any of her clipboard taps ever had. Phones went up. Someone in the back actually started slow clapping. Karen's sunglasses slipped down her nose as they walked her out past the very neighbors she'd terrorized. Past Mrs. Ramirez, who stood a little taller now, check for full restitution already in her purse courtesy of the AG's rapid freeze on Karen's accounts. By sunrise the next morning, the footage was everywhere. Clipboard Karen arrested live at HOA meeting trended locally before noon. Memes bloomed faster than spring buds, her face mid-scream captioned, "When the bylaws bite back." The state slapped agricultural conservation status on the entire Hale property that same week. Permanent protection no HOA could touch. The new board, elected in a landslide the following month, rewrote the covenants with one simple rule. If it predates 1950 and feeds people, leave it the hell alone. I stood on the ridge last week watching the vines leaf out, Mrs. Ramirez beside me watering her roses with the same old bucket. The air smelled like dirt and second chances. Karen's house is for sale now, bank-owned, ironic little sign in the yard that reads "Price to move." Turns out when you steal from the people who pay your salary, the market corrects you faster than any fine ever could. True or false? In the end, the real power abuser is always the one who hides behind community standards until the very rules she worshipped drag her down. And the only person who truly gets karma quashed is the one who forgot the land, the people, and the truth were never hers to control. Drop your vote in the comments. Who really got buried by their own empire?